This case is very intriguing because there's a huge web of rumors out there. It's hard to tell what is fact and what is fiction. A little background leading up to Brianna's disappearance. Brianna had moved out of her parents' house on her 17th birthday in October. She'd moved out because she was having some issues with her parents that have been described as typical parent-teen conflicts. She ended up moving in with her boyfriend James, but they eventually broke up. A note was found after her disappearance, which would indicate James may have had a drinking problem, which is the reason for the breakup. She enrolled at a school her friends attended, but ended up dropping out later. I've seen two different reasons for this in my research. The first explanation that I found was after the breakup, her living arrangements were unstable. The second explanation, that she was being bullied by a group of girls at school. These girls had been her friends, but turned on her due to jealousy issues. Brianna was an exceptionally beautiful girl, and that appears to be the reason for the jealousy issues and the bullying. By the end of February, she had moved into her childhood friend Jillian's house in Sheldon, Vermont, and started a GED program. 3 weeks prior to her disappearance on February 24th, she was attacked by Keely Lacrosse at a party. Brianna ended up with a broken nose and a concussion. This incident was related to the jealousy and the bullying. Apparently, Brianna was at the party, talking to one of the boyfriends of the girls in the group that was bullying her. Brianna decided to file charges against Keely. The charges were dropped 3 weeks after Brianna disappeared. Keely Lacrosse would later go on to commit other serious crimes, including a home invasion and assault. On March 19, 2004, Brianna took her GED program completion test. Her mom then took her shopping after the test, and at the checkout counter, something caught Brianna's attention. She told her mother that she would be right back and left the store, and when her mom finished checking out at the store, she went outside, where she found Brianna and stated that she was shaken and agitated. Brianna's mom did not ask her about it because she didn't want to pry, but around 3:30 p.m., Brianna left a note for her friend Jillian, saying that she would be back after work that night. She then got in her 1985 Oldsmobile sedan and left for work at the Black Lantern Inn in Montgomery, Vermont. Brianna was a dishwasher at the Black Lantern Inn and would sometimes wait tables if they were very busy. She clocked out of work at 11:20 p.m. that evening. Sometimes she would hang out with coworkers after work, but tonight she told them that she needed to get home to rest before working the next day at her other job in St. Albans. She was seen leaving by at least one coworker and appeared to be alone in her vehicle. The next day, a Vermont state trooper was dispatched to an abandoned house on Route 118 just outside of Montgomery, about 1 mile from the Black Lantern Inn. Her car was backed into an abandoned house known as the Old Dutch Burn House. A piece of plywood that had been covering a window had landed on top of the car. 2 paychecks from the Black Lantern Inn were in the front seat of the car. The state trooper thought that the car had been abandoned, possibly by a drunk driver. The car was towed from the scene. Days passed before anybody realized that Brianna was missing. This was a huge fail on the part of the law enforcement. Brianna's mother was the registered owner of the car. However, law enforcement failed to inform her that her car had been recovered. Her friend Jillian just assumed Brianna went to stay with her parents or another friend. Brianna's mother soon realized she was missing when Jillian called her 5 days later looking for Brianna. Kelly started making phone calls to Brianna's friends in an attempt to locate her, but had no luck. She was still unaware that the car had been recovered. Kelly filed a police report that day. On March 25th, Kelly and her husband Bruce went to the Vermont State Police and delivered pictures of Brianna. A trooper showed them a photo of the car embedded into the Old Dutch Burn House, and they identified it as Brianna's car. At least 3 witnesses reported seeing Brianna's car at the Dutch burn house that night. One witness found the scene to be so suspicious that they took photos. The police did not take photos, so the only ones that assist were the ones that the witness took. A man reported that he drove by the same time, around 11:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. He recalled seeing the car with its headlights on, but did not see anyone. Another man drove by between 12 a.m. and 12:30 a.m., and he saw a turning signal flashing. Around 4 a.m., her ex-boyfriend drove by after an evening of partying and thought that it may have been her car, but saw no one. The group of witnesses who took photographs saw loose change, water bottles, and what appeared to either be a bracelet or necklace on the ground around the car. The odd thing was, they observed was a lime wedge on the trunk of the car. Brianna's wallet was in the car along with some food. There was also some vomit in her car. It's thought to be from that night, but because her car was not processed for many days, it was hard to tell at that time. In 2007, Peter Godfrey was riding his ATV through the woods near where her car was found, in an area not previously searched. He found a pair of jeans. No witnesses were sure what Brianna was wearing that night. She went missing. A reporter went out to the scene. The police were searching after the jeans were found, and found a sweatshirt buried in the leaves. Police have not been able to positively say that these items belong to Brianna or not. There have been many theories floating around. Some think Keely LaCrosse had something to do with her disappearance to stop the charges. Some think her ex-boyfriend did it because it's fishy how he came across the car. Some people think she owed money for drugs, but I can't see that as the paychecks were still in the car with her wallet.
What happened to Car Couture remains a mystery. Search and rescue volunteers made another effort Sunday to find the missing 24-year-old, but again returned home empty. No signs of Couture, North Shore Rescue's Mike Danks said. Couture, who had recently moved from Vancouver to Quebec and was living in the West End, was last seen October 31st. A search for him began a few days after he didn't show up for work. Surveillance from Grouse Mountain showed that Couture had headed out into the Haynes Valley Trail and was apparently alone. He was poorly dressed for a long stint outdoors and was said to be an inexperienced hiker. The Haynes Valley Trails is considered quite difficult, a 16-kilometer loop hike that first heads north from Grouse Mountain, heads east towards Lynn Creek, and then south to the Lynn Headwaters parking lot. Part of the trail north of Grouse includes a rugged section down a steep boulder field. The trail has an elevation change of 1,320 meters. After several days of searching in early November proved fruitless, with winter mountain weather setting in, the search was suspended. A tip this past week from a member of the public about a notable smell near Norvan Falls, which is toward the northern end of Lynn Creek. North Shore Rescue conducted a search. According to the CBC, they did note a smell, but were unable to find the source. With sunshine finally returning Sunday, searchers made a final effort for 2017 in hopes of turning up some sign of Couture. Starting from Norvan Falls and moving south, they focused on the west side of Lynn Creek and the Haynes Valley Trail on the east side of the creek. A helicopter from Talon Helicopters also assisted in the search.
12-year-old Rihanna Baru disappeared from her home in Wakefield Avenue, Morphett Vale, South Australia, on October 7, 1992. Rihanna shared the home with her mother Paula and brother Shannon. Although Rihanna's parents were no longer together, she remained close to both of them. Rihanna's dad Leon was living on the Gold Coast at the time with his wife Sandra. It was school holidays, and while Rihanna usually spent her break with her dad on the Gold Coast, this time she had chosen to stay home with her mom. Brother Shannon was away on school camp. Rihanna was planning to catch the bus to meet her mother that day at the Colonnade Shopping Center, which was approximately 6 kilometers from her home, to buy a Christmas card for her American pen pal. That morning at approximately 8:30 a.m., her mother Paula was about to leave the family home and attend her job with the education department. Paula had heard on the radio that there was going to be a bus strike that day, and went into Rihanna's room to discuss the change of plans. She entered Rihanna's room where Rihanna was listening to the Love Shack by the B-52, which is reportedly one of Rihanna's favorite songs. Paula suggested that to Rihanna because of the bus strike, maybe she could walk to the Raynella Shopping Center instead. This shopping center is now known as the Southgate Plaza. Raynella Shopping Center at the time was approximately 1.5 kilometers and around a 20-minute walk away from her house. Paula then gave her daughter a kiss goodbye, and unfortunately, this was the last time she ever saw her. It's thought that Rihanna remained at her home until approximately 10:30 a.m., where she was seen leaving, walking in the directions of the shops. Sources claim that Rihanna bought the card for her pen pal from the news agents at 11:19 a.m. Rihanna was then sighted again between 12:05 and 12:30 p.m., walking through the grounds of Morfett Vale High School, carrying a small bag thought to have contained the card. Some sources claim that this was the last sighting of Rihanna. I also read a number of articles that stated there was another sighting of her at 4 p.m., standing alone at the junction of David Terrence and Acre Avenue, which is approximately a 6-minute walk from her home in Wakefield Avenue. At approximately 4:10 p.m., Paula Beru returned to her family home to find the door locked. When she entered the house, she was met with a record lying on the floor and the TV still on. On the dining room table, there was a card that Rihanna had bought for her pen pal, still there in its plastic wrapper. While Rihanna's personal belongings were still in the house, there was no sign of her daughter. Paula searched inside and outside, and knocked on the door of her neighbors' houses, but there was no sign of Rihanna. Although Paula had hoped that maybe Rihanna accidentally overstayed at a friend's house, she knew deep down this was unlikely, and by 6 p.m. the police were contacted. Since this day, there have been some potential leads, but unfortunately, nothing has led to an arrest. Many people mention a white 2-door Holden Tirana SLR 5000 with Victorian license plates that had been circling the area days before Rihanna disappeared. One neighbor of Rihanna's has stated that her husband saw a white Tirana parked in the street on and off in the days prior to the abduction, but he hasn't seen it since. Several women have reported to being followed by the same 2-door Tirana in that area. Police have asked for the driver of this Tirana to come forward for many, many years, but at this point, nobody ever has. Another neighbor of Rihanna's also reported hearing a young girl screaming on the afternoon of the disappearance, but this is unknown if it was related to the case. Searches for Rihanna at the time were widespread and thorough, and unfortunately, nothing has been found to lead to any arrest. Police believe that, due to Rihanna's age and lack of contact from her for the last 25 years, they can assume Rihanna is no longer alive. They believe she was likely murdered long after she was abducted. There was a report in 2012 that police were looking into someone who wasn't related to Rihanna and is being reinvestigated. In 2015, South Australian police launched Operation Persist to help solve South Australian unsolved murders, potentially including Rihanna's. Police are offering immunity and a $1 million reward for information and leads to the arrest of the disappearance and murder of Rihanna.
There's an area in Green Mountain National Forest near Glastonbury Mountain and Vermont's Long Trail that believers in the paranormal call Bennington Triangle. The area got its name because of a handful of mysterious disappearances which occurred between 1945 and 1950. Paranormal author Joseph A. Citro coined the term because of the supposedly supernatural circumstances surrounding these vanishings. Paula Weldon was the second person to go missing in that area of Green Mountain National Forest during this period. 18-year-old Weldon was a college student who set out on the trail in December 1946. She was dressed for walking and not a long hike, wearing jeans, a coat, and sneakers. Her attire implied that she planned to return before dark, when the temperatures were supposed to dip below freezing. Weldon told her roommate that she was taking a long walk, and she never returned. Several people spotted her as she hitchhiked her way to the trail and walked to the trailhead. When Weldon didn't come back by dark, her roommate let the school know, and the search began. Classes were suspended so students could help with the search. The process was disorganized at first, until Weldon's father called in favors from police in 2 surrounding states. Unfortunately, the search didn't pan out, and frustrated family and friends had their own theories about what happened to her. Did Weldon run off with a boyfriend? Was she abducted, or did she commit suicide? Or did she die of exposure because of her inappropriate attire? No one has discovered her body, so her disappearance remains a mystery. There's a rumor that this area of the Long Trail is home to a creature called the Bennington Monster. Could this Sasquatch-like animal have something to do with the disappearance? Regardless of whether people think these disappearances are natural or supernatural in nature, the cases do have a few things in common. The missing tended to be alone when they disappeared or separated from their group by at least 50 yards. Bad weather and chaotic, disorganized searches are also a running theme in these cases. You can believe that these were accidents, abductions, or something even more sinister. But regardless, there are lessons in these stories about how to stay safer when you're out in the woods.
On the 17th of February 2008, 24-year-old Marilyn Bergeron left her parents' home in Quebec, Canada, for what she said was a walk and never returned. The police theorized that Marilyn committed suicide. However, strange events leading up to her disappearance have led her family to believe otherwise. A couple of years prior to her disappearance, Marilyn moved to Montreal where she had a job and an apartment. However, in early 2008, she told her parents that she no longer felt safe living on her own, and in February of that year, she abruptly left her apartment and moved back in with her parents. During this period, her family said it was apparent that something was troubling her and she was often tearful, though she would never tell them why she was upset. Shortly after, Marilyn disappeared. On the day of her disappearance, she left her parents' house with her credit card and no other identification. She showed up on CCTV attempting to withdraw money from an ATM 25 kilometers from her house. The CCTV footage shows Marilyn glancing over her shoulder several times, and police believe she may have been looking at a car which was parked behind her. A few hours after being at the ATM, Marilyn purchased a cup of coffee, and the staff at the coffee shop said she appeared to be depressed and wanted to leave quickly. There have been no official sightings of Marilyn since, and her credit card was not used again. 2 years after her disappearance, a man came forward claiming he had seen Marilyn in the company of a younger man in Francophone community in Ontario. Customers at a restaurant in the local area also claimed to have seen her regularly. The case took another turn last year when a friend of Marilyn's from college came forward with a story from late 2007. When he claimed that he had noticed a change in Marilyn's demeanor and had attempted to find out what was wrong. He asked her if she had been raped or had witnessed a murder, to which she replied that something much worse had happened. He claims to have spent hours trying to get to the bottom of it with her, but felt that she was trying to keep him out of danger and never got the full story. So what do people on here think? Is there a chance Marilyn is still alive somewhere in Canada? Was she taken by a shady character she crossed paths with in Montreal? Or did she take her own life?
I'm sure you guys have already heard about this case, but a 20-year-old man named Christopher Tompkins disappeared in Ellerslie, a small town roughly 20 miles away from Columbus in Harris County, Georgia. On January 5th, 2002, Christopher left his house at 8:10 a.m. to work with 3 other surveyors near Highway 85 in Ellerslie, Georgia. The group of men were working in a line, maybe 50 or so feet away from each other. The group concluded their work and began to walk back to their truck, but when they looked back, Christopher was gone. At about 1 p.m., Christopher was reported missing to the lead surveyor's wife, but Christopher said mother wasn't notified until 4:15 p.m., which is, in my opinion, odd, to say the least. Nearby, one of Christopher's work boots was found, next to a barbed wire fence with a tattered patch of Christopher's jeans dangling on the fence, his tools, and 12 cents in change in the grass next to his boot. Months later, about half a mile from where he initially vanished, a farmer found his second boot near a swamp. The evidence says Christopher was somehow struck with a force so strong it knocked his change, tools, and boots and flung him over the fence in nearly half a mile. Some theorize Christopher walked off the job. Some theorize it was a Wendigo or something of the like. And some theorize that he was murdered. What do you guys think?
On October 27, 1989, Melanie Melanson, a 14-year-old freshman in high school, went to a party in Woburn, Massachusetts, and was never seen again. There were rumors that she had run off to Florida, but police are now investigating more sinister theories with regards to her disappearance. The party. Melanie told her grandmother that she was staying at her friend's house, her next-door neighbor, but didn't mention that there was a party that night. Her friend had to stay back because of curfew, but Melanie still planned to stay over after she was done. The party took place off in a wooded area on the outskirts of town that was a popular area for teens and underage drinking. Melanie was the youngest person of about a dozen at the party, and as the night went on, the only girl. 5 guys turned to 2, and it was just Melanie and her best friends, Jean Pertini and Jimmy Tresca, at 2 a.m. They all hung out together until Jimmy decided to go home. He offered Melanie a ride to her friend's house where she was supposed to spend the night, but she declines in order to hang out longer with Jean. Jean and Melanie walk from a wooded area near the party towards the main street together, chatting. Jean has a motorcycle but only one helmet, so he did not offer Melanie a ride home. Jean took off towards Woburn and said he saw Melanie start walking alone the other direction, opposite of her friend's house. This is the last reported sighting of Melanie. The case against Jimmy and Jean. Here is a mishmash of rumors, circumstantial evidence, gossip, and character evidence against Jimmy and Jean. Take all of this with a grain of salt. Jean and Jimmy both tell conflicting stories and say that the other person was the last to see Melanie. The very same week of Melanie's disappearance, Jimmy's car disappeared. Jimmy says it must have been stolen. There are rumors of Jimmy being seen with a dirty shovel either near the location or at his house, but sources differ. Both had girlfriends who had been at the party who refused to speak to investigators and still haven't to this day. Jimmy's girlfriend was with him the morning after the disappearance. Most sources say that Jean was openly cheating on his girlfriend with Melanie. Jimmy's stepfather is a retired Woburn police officer named Tony Rodriguez, who retired not long after this incident, and he moved his family to Florida. In 2011, 37-year-old Jean Pertini was arrested after allegedly pistol whipping 2 teens during a gas station robbery in Wakefield. Police say Pertini stole $300 and a necklace from one of the teens. After being arrested, Jean Pertini refused DNA testing. The case went to the Massachusetts Supreme Court. Runaway. One of the hardest parts of this mystery is that investigators spent a significant portion of time believing that Melanie ran away to Florida on her own volition, and thus missed a crucial time period in looking for her. Melanie didn't have an easy home life with parents who abused substances, and she had ran away in the past to her grandparents' house in a town nearby. She was currently staying there the night of the party. Police now believe Melanie was killed that evening. They also believe that the body has most likely been moved, maybe multiple possible times since her death. Tips. 1992. An anonymous telephone caller called police to look for Melanson's body in an area pond. Investigators did search the pond but found no evidence connected to her case. 2009. An anonymous tip to search in the Middlesex Fells in Stoneham reopens the case. September 2009. Excavation of the land behind Industrial Park near the party location. 2010. Another search at the location of the party. 2011. A search of the residence of one of the suspects and a property connected to the woods area. Another search of the party spot. December 2011. Dogs give signs of human remains at a McDonald's in Woburn following an anonymous tip. 2012. The anonymous caller directed authorities to search nearby Middlesex Fells Reservation in Stoneham, where he said one of the teens last seen partying with Melanson was spotted later that night, according to the source. The caller identified himself as a former friend of one of the teens at the party that night. Nothing of note was found. July 2012. Dogs detect area of interest in Fells, but nothing is found. 2015. Investigators searched the backyard of a house that had switched ownership recently. The previous owners had not allowed them to search it. Radar detection showed some clues, but after a thorough investigation with dogs, forensic anthropologists, and others, nothing of note was discovered. Some sources say it was Jimmy's father's house during the time of the disappearance.
Jordan Holling was last seen on October 16, 2017, leaving a friend's house in Campbell River, walking to his nearby home. Jordan Holling is a 17-year-old youth from Campbell River. On Sunday night, he was at a friend's house located on 16th Avenue. He left there on Monday morning between 1 and 2 a.m. to walk a short distance home. He did not arrive home and did not show up for work later that day. Jordan's described as being 5'11" and 145 pounds. He has shaggy brown hair, wears glasses, and was last seen wearing a gray, long-sleeved sweatshirt, black pants, and black and red shoes. We're very concerned for Jordan's well-being, and hope the public can assist us in locating him, said Corporal Vlusok of the Campbell River RCMP. This is out of character for him, and his friends and family are very worried.
A car belonging to a missing 31-year-old Woodbridge woman was found in a remote area of the Shenandoah National Park over the weekend. But the search continues for the avid runner and triathlete whose family members said might have been in the park to use a running trail. Virginia State Police discovered Nicole K. Mittendorff's 2009 Mini Cooper parked near a White Oak Canyon trail, close to Old Rag, on Saturday night, said Corinne Geller, a spokeswoman for the state police. But there has been no other sign of Mittendorff since the middle of last week. Family members reported Mittendorff missing Friday after she didn't show up for a morning shift at her job, again, which was very unusual for her. To aid the search, the family set up a webpage, which is findnicole.com, that is seeking tips and has provided regular updates on Mittendorff's possible whereabouts. In a Facebook post, her father said Mittendorff was extremely dedicated to her job and didn't show up for her Friday morning changeover. That was sparking a lot of concern for the family. Jennifer Clardy Chalmers, Mittendorff's sister, said Mittendorff is a career paramedic and firefighter with Fairfax County Fire and Rescue, and has been with the department since 2013, the department directed questions to Virginia State Police. "We are holding up as best as we can, expected under these difficult circumstances," Chalmers said Sunday. "At this time, we are focused on finding Nicole and having the deepest appreciation for everyone else helping. We hope and pray for a safe resolution in the near future." Family members speculated that Mittendorff might have been going out to train for a race. Shenandoah National Park along the Blue Ridge Mountains has an extensive trail network, including a stretch of Appalachian Trail. The White Oak Canyon Trail runs near Skyline Drive, and it is known for its waterfalls. Nicole likes to compete in multi-sport events such as triathlons and regularly runs half marathons, read a companion Facebook page. Find Nicole. She participates in CrossFit, is a gym regular, and can often be found riding and running on trails. Robert Clardy, Mittendorff's father, said in his Facebook post with his last contact with her was through text message at about 10:50 a.m. Wednesday morning. State and U.S. Park Police have been searching for Mittendorff by ground and by air, and efforts to find her continued Sunday afternoon, police said. Mittendorff is described to be as 5'6" white female with blonde hair and green eyes, weighing about 125 pounds. The Virginia State Police has asked anyone with information about Mittendorff to call 703-803-0026. Rescuers on Thursday suspended their search for missing Portland woman whose car was found at Multnomah Falls Thursday afternoon. Alyssa Marie McCrann, 37, was last seen by family members on Saturday when she returned home from a morning run near Portland Adventist Medical Center, Portland police said. She left her southeast Portland home, located in the Powellhurst, Gilbert neighborhood, later that morning and has not been seen since. Her car was spotted on Tuesday in the Multnomah Falls parking lot. Teams began searching hiking trails near the falls Tuesday afternoon, said Lieutenant Steve Alexander of the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. It's a very big area. We'll have multiple teams heading into the field to move through there, Alexander told KGW. It's very coordinated. We have the trails mapped. We have a lot of coordination that goes into making sure teams are canvassing all the areas. Then, on Wednesday, investigators said they got a tip from some hikers who believe they saw McCrann trail running on Saturday. She was not dressed or prepared for an extended stay in the cold and snow, they said. Search teams from multiple agencies searched over 150 miles of the trail system in the Columbia Gorge. More than 100 volunteers helped with the effort, but McCrann was not found, according to Portland police. We are so grateful for the efforts search and rescue teams have made, McCrann's father, Kevin, told KGW. You couldn't ask for more professional people. They are really great, but unfortunately we haven't been able to find Alyssa. However, more than a foot of new snow fell at higher elevations Wednesday night, and ice accumulation has made it difficult to search on the trails. McCrann lives with her parents and her 13-year-old son, according to police. She has no medical or mental issues. Police do not suspect foul play. A friend, Eric Ledecky, describes her as an upbeat, friendly person. She'd do anything for you. She's the first one at your party, he said. During birthdays, she'd get you things. She'd help others out without asking for things in return. She's a good person. Everyone should have a friend like her. A search will resume for McCann if new leads develop, police said. McCrann is 5'3" and 145 pounds. She has black hair, brown eyes, and normally wears glasses. Anyone who sees McCann is asked to call 911 or contact the Missing Person Unit by email, missing@portlandoregon.gov. Search crews spent a chilly, rainy Wednesday using dogs trained to detect human remains to find an Albuquerque, New Mexico man missing in the area of Maroon Bells for more than a year now. But for the third time this year, they've come up empty. No signs of David Cook, 49, or clues as to where his whereabouts are. According to the statement from the Pitkin County Sheriff's Office, the news was particularly frustrating for Cook's wife, Maureen, who said Wednesday she's been planning the first memorial service for her husband, which is scheduled for Friday, since he disappeared. It's a hard thing to hear about, that the search didn't produce any results, Maureen Cook said. You get your hopes up every time they do a search. Wednesday's operations were followed similar efforts in July, when aerial searches of North and South Maroon Peaks and Pyramid Peak were conducted, and in August, when 3 search and rescue organizations as well as dogs looked for the experienced climber. On Wednesday, volunteers with Mountain Rescue Aspen, who searched for Cook on the ground and from the air for 8 days after he went missing on September 20th of 2016, identified 3 areas that had been searched aerially with ground terms, but not with dogs. Pitkin County Deputy Grant Janicki said. Those areas included Fravert Basin, Los Remuda Basin, and the amphitheater below Pyramid Peak's north face, according to the statement. MRA volunteers assisted handlers from Colorado Forensic Canines in searching those areas, beginning at 7 a.m., and all the teams were out of the field by 3:30 p.m., the statement says. The sheriff's office is not planning any searches for David Cook unless further information develops, Janicki said. There's really nothing we haven't searched yet, he said. Mountain Rescue has spent probably 1,000 hours searching, so we've been thorough, that's for sure. Cook was last seen by a U.S. Forest Service employee the morning of September 20, 2016 by Maroon Lake. He was planning to do a solo climb or all the 3 peaks, the Maroon Bells or Pyramid Peak, and maps out the routes of all 3 were found in his car. The lack of knowing what happened to her husband has been hard to take, Maureen Cook said. We did have hope for so long. Not only that he would come home, but that they would find him, she said. Now I just want to know what happened and where he is. There'd be some comfort in that at the very least. Maureen Cook said that she and her 3 children, 2 daughters 15 and 8 years old, and her 13-year-old son, were in Aspen last week and are aware of the large numbers of deaths on Aspen area peaks and in the back country this summer. It's baffling they can't find him, Maureen Cook said. The others, they go up in a helicopter and they're able to find them. It's all more baffling, she said, because her husband was an experienced mountaineer and a former rock climbing guide who was meticulous in his climbing preparations and decisions. He wasn't somebody trying to bag 58 peaks, Maureen Cook said. Still, the family enjoyed their time in Aspen and went hiking around the Maroon Bells area, she said. It was nice to be up there last week and spend time with Dave, Maureen Cook said. The family is grateful for both volunteer searches, repeated efforts, and the response that her family has received from the community, she said. People have been so gracious and hospitable to us in Aspen, Maureen Cook said. You really feel the sense of community up there. Her husband's memorial is scheduled to take place Friday in the village of Corrales, where they live, located just north of Albuquerque along the banks of Rio Grande River. It's the first memorial they've had for him, she said. The kids and I just weren't ready before, Maureen Cook said. The father of missing hiker that was last seen at Grand Canyon of National Park in Arizona says his son texted him telling him he needed to be back with Mother Earth. Drake Kramer, 21, of San Antonio was last seen Sunday morning checking out of the Bright Angel Lodge, officials said. His father, Robin Kramer, said his son told him Monday that he was going to the Grand Canyon and he needed to be back with Mother Earth to set his soul free. At that point, we really started getting worried and started calling and trying to get people to look for him. The family reported Drake Kramer missing on Monday, and search efforts in a missing persons investigation are now underway. He posted on his Facebook when he was out here with his aunt last time, "Wish I could stay," and he had other posts about places he'd like to see, such as the Redwood Forest before he dies, Robin Kramer said. We're focusing on the positive by trying to believe that him saying he needed to be with Mother Earth and set his soul free was that he was talking about being in nature and being one with nature, he said. Drake Kramer loves to be outdoors, his father said, but he's not sure if his son took appropriate hiking gear with him. He was on the road to be a geologist, so he should be out in nature where he loves to be, Robin Kramer said. Drake Kramer drove out west on I-10 according to his father. There had to be people that saw him when he filled up for gas. We'd really like to know if anyone saw him purchase any of the appropriate equipment with cash, Robin Kramer said. If anyone along the way with him heard anything, any information will be great. Kirby Lynn Shadowski with the Grand Canyon National Park told ABC News, "We don't know what his plans were. He may be hiking, we just don't know. Nobody is sure where he is, what he's doing, if he's okay," Robin Kramer said. So many people that love him and are worried about him. Everyone is just on the edge of their seat. Drake Kramer is described as having brown hair and blue eyes. He is 5 foot 7 inches tall and 140 pounds, officials say. Anyone with information can call the National Park Service Silent Witness line at 928-638-7840.